Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to address a topic that touches each of our lives in countless ways. The problems that face mankind. As we progress into the 21st century, we are confronted by a complex web of challenges. Some are deeply rooted in history, while others are new and emerging with the modern world. Despite our advances in technology, medicine, and communication, humanity continues to struggle with fundamental issues that threaten our survival, dignity, and future. Climate change stands as one of the most daunting challenges facing mankind in the 21st century. It is not merely a scientific phenomenon but a global humanitarian crisis that affects every corner of the earth. The increase in greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide and methane, caused by industrial emissions, deforestation, and unsustainable practices, is gradually warming our planet. This warming has led to drastic changes in weather patterns, making droughts more severe, storms more intense, and seasonal cycles more unpredictable. As temperatures rise, ice caps and glaciers continue to melt at an alarming rate, contributing to rising sea levels and altering the natural balance of ecosystems. The impact of climate change is not confined to the environment alone. It directly threatens human life and global stability. Entire communities, especially in low-lying coastal areas and island nations, are already experiencing displacement due to flooding and land erosion. Farmers face crop failures due to irregular rainfall and extreme temperatures, which jeopardizes food security and leads to economic instability. Health risks are also mounting as climate diseases such as malaria and heat stroke become more widespread. In many developing countries, the poor and vulnerable suffer the most, despite contributing the least to global emissions, which raises ethical concerns about environmental justice. Moreover, the crisis has a domino effect on biodiversity. As habitats shift or disappear, countless plant and animal species are driven toward extinction. Coral reefs, often described as the rainforests of the sea, are bleaching and dying at a rapid pace due to warming oceans. Forests, which play a crucial role in carbon absorption and climate regulation, are being destroyed by both human activity and changing climates. These losses affect not only nature but also the livelihoods of millions who depend on natural ecosystems for survival, including indigenous communities, farmers, and fishermen. Despite increasing awareness, global responses to climate change remain inconsistent and often inadequate. While some nations have committed to reducing carbon emissions and transitioning to renewable energy, political interests, economic dependencies, and lack of effective action, international agreements like the Paris Accord offer a framework, but without collective willpower and significant policy changes, they risk falling short. Education, sustainable innovation, and cooperation across borders are essential to slow down and eventually reverse the damage. Climate change is not a distant threat. It is a present reality, demanding immediate and unified global attention. Poverty and inequality remain some of the most pervasive and persistent problems that mankind faces today. Despite unprecedented advancements in technology and the accumulation of global wealth, billions of people still struggle to meet their basic needs. In many regions, poverty is not just about the absence of money, it is about the absence of opportunities, access, and dignity. Entire communities live without reliable food, clean water, shelter, healthcare, and education. For these individuals, life is a daily battle for survival. Poverty traps families in cycles that are hard to escape, often being passed down from one generation to the next. Economic inequality, both within and between nations, exacerbates this problem, The gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen, creating a world where a small percentage of people control most of the resources, while millions live in deprivation. This imbalance not only limits the economic growth of entire regions, but also breeds resentment, unrest, and social instability. Inequality affects access to quality education, employment opportunities, and political representation. People in marginalized communities often remain voiceless and powerless, excluded from systems that are supposed to serve everyone equally. Social inequality intersects with other forms of discrimination, including those based on race, gender, ethnicity, and religion. In many places, women and girls are disproportionately affected by poverty due to lack of education, limited job prospects, and cultural restrictions. Minority groups often face systemic barriers that hinder their social mobility. These disparities perpetuate cycles of poverty and create environments of exclusion where the potential of entire populations is stifled. When large segments of society are denied access to basic resources and equal opportunities, the very fabric of progress is undermined. Addressing poverty and inequality requires more than just economic growth. It demands inclusive policies, fair distribution of resources, and social justice. Governments, international institutions, and civil society must work together to create systems that uplift the marginalized and empower the underserved. Access to quality education, healthcare, and economic opportunities must become universal rights, not privileges. Only by bridging the divide and lifting people out of poverty can we ensure a stable, just, and prosperous future for all. Conflict and war have plagued humanity since the dawn of civilization, but their consequences in the modern world are even more devastating due to the scale and lethality of contemporary weapons. From civil wars to ideological and religious violence, countless people suffer the trauma of losing loved ones, homes, and livelihoods. The impact of war goes beyond the battlefield. It devastates entire nations, disrupts economies, collapses institutions, and leaves deep psychological scars on survivors. Civilians, often the most vulnerable, bear the heaviest burden, facing displacement, starvation, and violence. The causes of conflict are multifaceted and deeply rooted in political, economic, and cultural tensions. Competition over resources such as land, water, and minerals often leads to violent confrontations, especially in fragile states. Ethnic and religious divisions are manipulated by political actors to gain power, inciting hatred and unrest. In some regions, historical grievances remain unresolved, creating an environment of mistrust and hostility. Power struggles between nations as well as within them lead to civil wars and proxy wars that drag on for years, sometimes decades, destroying entire generations. The modern landscape of conflict has also evolved with the rise of terrorism, cyber warfare, and unconventional combat. Armed groups operate across borders, exploiting weak governance and ideological fervor. Terrorist attacks not only claim innocent lives, but also instill fear, disrupt daily life, and provoke harsh state responses that may erode civil liberties. Cyber attacks can cripple critical infrastructure and sow chaos without a single bullet being fired. The changing nature of conflict makes it even harder to prevent and control, requiring new approaches in diplomacy, intelligence, and international cooperation. War and violence leave long-term consequences that are not easily repaired. Refugee crises, broken economies, and political instability persist long after the fighting ends. Children in war-torn areas grow up without education or a sense of safety, making them vulnerable to recruitment by extremist groups. Rebuilding after war is not just about physical reconstruction. It is about healing societies, restoring trust, and establishing justice. Peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of equality, dialogue, and understanding. Conflict prevention and resolution must be prioritized as a core mission for global leadership and collective human responsibility. Health crises and pandemics have historically shaped the course of human civilization, but their relevance has become even more pronounced in the modern era. The COVID-19 pandemic in particular exposed the vulnerabilities and inequalities within global health systems. It revealed how even the most developed nations were unprepared for a rapid and wide-scale health emergency. Hospitals were overwhelmed, healthcare workers were stretched beyond capacity, and millions of lives were lost. This crisis disrupted every aspect of life, from education and employment to social interactions and mental well-being, reminding us that health is the foundation upon which all human progress is built. Pandemics are not merely biological events. They are deeply intertwined with economic, political, and social systems. When a health crisis strikes, its effects ripple far beyond the immediate threat of illness. Lockdowns and travel restrictions brought global commerce to a halt, throwing millions into unemployment and plunging entire industries into crisis. Education systems were paralyzed, with children in remote or poor areas often cut off from learning altogether. Mental health issues soared as isolation, fear, and grief took their toll on individuals and communities. You put it, these secondary effects illustrate how a health crisis can unravel the fabric of daily life and long-term development. A significant challenge revealed by pandemics is the vast inequality in healthcare access and quality across the world. Wealthier nations were able to deploy vaccines and treatments rapidly, while poorer countries were left waiting. Many regions still lack basic healthcare infrastructure, trained medical personnel, and access to essential medicines. This disparity not only prolongs pandemics but also undermines global recovery and solidarity. In many cases, marginalized populations such as refugees, the elderly, the disabled, and the poor were hit hardest by the lack of resources and attention. A truly global response requires that no country or community is left behind. Another critical aspect of health crises is the role of misinformation and public mistrust. During the COVID-19 pandemic, false information spread rapidly through social media, leading to vaccine hesitancy, unsafe practices, and unnecessary panic. This erosion of trust in science and health authorities compromised public health efforts. In the future, it is essential to build stronger communication strategies, invest in public health education, and prepare for potential outbreaks with transparency and cooperation. Global health security must be prioritized through early warning systems, robust healthcare infrastructure, and international collaboration. Because in a connected world, a health threat anywhere is a threat everywhere. The rapid advancement of technology has brought significant benefits to humanity, revolutionizing how we live, work, and connect. However, this progress has also introduced a new spectrum of challenges, particularly concerning the misuse of technology. One of the most prominent threats is cybercrime, which has evolved into a multi-billion-dollar global issue. Hackers can now steal financial data, disrupt businesses, manipulate information, and even compromise national security systems. Governments, corporations, and individuals are all at risk. And the speed at which cyber threats are developing makes them increasingly difficult to detect and counter. Beyond cybercrime, the misuse of technology has also contributed to widespread misinformation and social polarization. Social media platforms, originally designed to connect people, have become breeding grounds for fake news, hate speech, and extremist ideologies. Algorithms often amplify sensational content to drive engagement regardless of its accuracy or consequences. This distortion of truth undermines democracy, affects public health, and erodes societal trust. The digital divide further exacerbates the issue, as not all individuals have the tools or knowledge to discern credible sources from deceptive ones. Artificial intelligence, AI, automation, and machine learning, while offering great potential, also carries significant ethical and social implications when misused. AI systems can reinforce biases in hiring, policing, and lending, leading to discriminatory outcomes. Automation threatens to displace millions of workers, particularly in low-skilled industries, raising concerns about unemployment and widening income inequality. The unchecked development of autonomous weapons and surveillance technologies also raises serious human rights concerns. Without clear regulations and ethical guidelines, technology risks becoming a tool of oppression rather than empowerment. Moreover, privacy concerns are increasingly coming to the forefront as data collection becomes more invasive and widespread. From smart devices to online platforms, users often unknowingly give up vast amounts of personal information that can be exploited for commercial or malicious purposes. The right to privacy is being challenged by corporations and governments alike, leading to growing public apprehension. To ensure that technology serves humanity and not the other way around, there must be global efforts to create transparent, fair, and enforceable digital rights frameworks. Education in digital literacy and ethical innovation is also crucial to preparing future generations for the challenges of an increasingly connected world. While climate change often dominates environmental discussions, numerous other forms of environmental degradation pose equally critical threats to humanity. One of the most urgent issues is deforestation, which not only contributes to global warming, but also destroys habitats and endangers countless species. Forests, particularly rainforests, are vital carbon sinks and biodiversity hotspots, yet they are being cleared at alarming rates for agriculture, mining, and urban development. This destruction has profound consequences for both the environment and the indigenous communities that rely on these forests for their livelihoods and cultural identity. Pollution is another pervasive form of environmental degradation, affecting air, water, and soil quality worldwide. So serious health issues such as respiratory diseases are a problem and even prolongs the export. Pollution is another global form of agri-pollution, such as global warming accelerates global water pollution, often caused by untreated sewage, industrial waste, and agricultural runoff, contaminates drinking water sources and harms aquatic ecosystems. Soil degradation from overuse of chemical fertilizers and pesticides reduces agricultural productivity, threatening food security. The loss of biodiversity is a quieter but equally devastating aspect of environmental degradation. Human encroachment into wild habitats, poaching, and pollution are driving countless species to extinction at a rate not seen since the age of dinosaurs. Each lost species disrupts the ecological balance and diminishes nature's ability to provide essential services such as pollination, water purification, and climate regulation. This collapse of biodiversity also makes ecosystems more fragile and less resilient to climate shocks and other environmental changes, endangering human health and economic stability in the process. Plastic pollution, particularly in oceans, has become a global crisis. Millions of tons of plastic waste enter the oceans every year, where it harms marine life, enters the food chain, and ultimately affects human health. Microplastics have been found in drinking water, seafood, and even the air we breathe. The convenience of disposable plastic has come at a massive ecological cost. Addressing environmental degradation requires a shift in how societies produce, consume, and value natural resources. Strong environmental laws, global cooperation, and individual responsibility are essential to halting and reversing the damage we continue to inflict on the planet that sustains us. In recent times, one of the less discussed but deeply consequential problems facing mankind is the moral and spiritual decline that appears to be spreading across societies. As materialism takes precedence, core values such as honesty, compassion, humility, and empathy are increasingly overshadowed by self-interest and the pursuit of wealth or power. In many parts of the world, individuals are encouraged to value success in terms of possessions and status rather than character and virtue. This shift in values has profound implications not only for individuals but also for families, communities, and global harmony. A society without a strong moral foundation is vulnerable to division, corruption, and moral decay. The erosion of moral values is evident in various aspects of daily life, from increasing incidents of violence, dishonesty, and intolerance to the widespread acceptance of unethical behavior in public and private institutions. In politics, the prioritization of personal or partisan gain over the public good leads to broken promises, manipulation, and mistrust. In business, unethical practices such as exploitation, fraud, and environmental neglect are often justified in the name of profit. The normalization of such behavior not only sets dangerous precedents but also weakens the moral compass of future generations who grow up in a world where ethical boundaries seem blurred or irrelevant. The spiritual dimension of this decline also carries significant weight. Spirituality, which connects individuals to a sense of purpose, community, and inner peace, is being neglected or misunderstood in many parts of the world. While religion remains a powerful force in many societies, its core teachings of love, service, humility, and unity are often overshadowed by rigid doctrines, extremism, or superficial ritual. Many individuals feel disconnected, anxious, and directionless despite material comfort, a phenomenon often described as a spiritual crisis. In the absence of spiritual grounding, people are more susceptible to depression, isolation, and destructive behavior, which further erode the fabric of collective well-being. The weakening of moral and spiritual principles also affects how we interact with the planet and with one another. A spiritually grounded society sees nature not as a commodity but as a sacred trust. It treats fellow humans with respect and fairness, regardless of differences. When such principles are lost, environmental destruction and social injustice become more acceptable, even normalized. Cultivating a return to values such as kindness, gratitude, accountability, and inner reflection is not merely an individual task, it is a collective necessity. In light of these pressing challenges, ranging from environmental crises and health pandemics to social inequality and moral decline, it becomes evident that the survival and progress of mankind depend not only on technological advancement or economic growth, but on our collective conscience and cooperation. These are not isolated issues. They are interconnected threats that demand united action, empathy, and responsibility from every individual, community, and nation. We stand at a crossroads. Allah, here we stand at a crossroads where indifference can lead to differences, attract construct, or restrain and prejudice. Any strength can lead to devolve on truly human.